after the recent Israel and Gaza war, on top of the past 2 years there was the Ukraine and Russia war, it inspired me to share some of my personal opinions about why there's always war in humanity. In the lifetime of humanity, there have been many wars in the past. And I think we have been taught at school, we have history class where we learn about our history. And I think the purpose of teaching history was so then we can learn from the past mistakes and we will not make the same mistake again in the future. However, that is really not making the case here, as reality has shown. I think the reason why we're making the same mistake over and over again is because over time, it's not the same people who went through those wars that are starting the war again. It's the next generation or the following generation. So when people do not realize or did not have the experience of what a war really is all about, the new next generation will make the same mistake again. And even though we were taught that war is bad, violence is bad, but it keeps happening around every single time. No matter where you are, what you do, if you're wrong or if you're right, as long as there are humans around, there's going to be violence. And violence is almost like human nature. Sorry to say, and bad to admit, but it is really the truth. And but then why do people show violence? Why? Why do we keep fighting each other and hurting each other? Well, of course, I don't think that it's human nature that we just want to hurt each other for fun, but there's always a conflict and there's always a sense of greed, and we dislike people that are not thinking the same as us or even looking the same as us. So that's why we have a lot of violence in the world, because everybody is different and people like to categorize themselves into different groups of people, so then they can differentiate themselves and make themselves unique, and they can be with people who think similarly or the same as they are. So for example, there are a lot of different things that people can be different about. One of the top things is religious belief. And even within religion, there are many different types of religions. There's like Buddhism, Hindu, Catholic, Christian, many types. Among these groups, who is worshiping the true God? Well, I don't know. Maybe people have their own argument. I really don't know the answer. But the point is, people divide themselves because they believe differently. And everybody who believes what they believe really believe that they are right and everybody else is wrong. And that is the start of conflict. And of course, this is not limited to religion. We see this everywhere, even at work, at school, about racism. That is the most obvious. Because religion, you don't really see the difference until you see the person practice or speak about it. But racism is appearance. And you can see the person, the first impression that you got from the person you saw is ingrained into your is entrenched into your brain, and you act or behave slightly differently, or maybe obviously differently, than how you would approach people that are the same race as you. Oftentimes, from my experience, people who are in the same ethnicity like to be friends with the people of the same ethnicity. I started school in a newcomer class, and in my classroom there were people of all different races coming from different parts of the world because we are all newcomers to the United States. And I remember in my classroom, the biggest group of people were the Somalians. And there were like maybe 8 or 9 of them. And among them, they band together as one group that always hang out together. And that's very natural. And that's very normal. At work, I go to the lunch area and I see a lot of Chinese people like to sit together and talk at the cafeteria. And that is very normal as well. So naturally, we segregate ourselves based on what we believe is what is correct, and also what we believe is the same as us, and that is what we like and embrace. Others who do not think the same, act the same, behave the same, or even look the same as us, we should stay away from. But for some people, that become violence. And that's why there's always conflict between humans. Of course, religions and ethnicities are not the reason why we have the recent war with Ukraine and Russia, or Gaza and Israel. It may contribute to it, but it's not really the main reason. I think the main reason now is because of greed. And when I say greed, I don't mean that they're fighting to win money, but in a sense they are. They want control over the land. They want to destroy the other country because they want to gain control and they want to take over the resources. That's really ultimately the reason why they started the war. All the other reasons, I think it was just really excuses to launch the war or the attack. Maybe what they said is for self-protection, but ultimately, greed is what is driving the modern world war right now. And the reason why I strongly believe in greed is the driving factor in today's war is because the population around the globe has been increasing dramatically, especially with the advance in healthcare that have let people live a longer life, and people was able to stay more healthy, and so the population increased over time, while the resources of Earth is a finite number. And what happened when you have so many more people who are living in the same Earth, but then at the same time the amount of resources doesn't increase? The number one obvious thing that does not increase is the amount of water, and I mean fresh water, on Earth. You might be surprised to know that a lot of people, especially in developing countries, do not have access to basic clean water. And that is really something that will start driving future war, in my personal thought. because water is essential for life. And if you don't have the resource, it doesn't have to be water, food, electricity, oil, all those things are the basic needs of life right now. And that's why they need to take the land, they need to take the resources, so then they can give it to their own people. And the only way to do that is to attack their neighbors, because that's the easiest to collect those resources. You think about Taiwan situation. That is ultimately the same thing, right? China want Taiwan back. Why? Well, Taiwan is basically a money maker. It makes a lot of essential computer chips that power everything. Not just computer chip, all kind of chips that can power the AI and everything on the world. One of the biggest factory. And why does the US want to protect Taiwan from being overtaken by China? Well, because that's where they get the chips from as well. So there's a strong conflict of interest. That's why US is helping Taiwan. It's not because US is like trying to be nice and like keep Taiwan away from China just to protect them because they don't want to come back to China's ruling, but because Taiwan is able to provide the advanced chips that is very important for creating advanced weapons and then all the other consumer stable and everything. And then in the end, what's the answer? That is the resources. And greed is what is driven. That might be a potential war in the future. We don't know yet. But there is basically a proxy war between China and US right now. And the battleground is on advanced technology. I have a more pessimistic outlook. Basically, I don't think that humanity will ever end war. After having wars, of course, then there's gonna be a period of peace because people need to recover from their loss, rebuild from the destruction, and reunite with their family and friends. But after a period of peaceful time to rebuild and relive our life, the next generation or the following generation will restart the war again. And that is just really the cycle of life, and war is part of it. I want to think that war might be a secret way for Mother Nature to stabilize the world. Because if you think about it, as I mentioned earlier, the more people that's gonna live on Earth, the less resources that we're gonna have around the world to distribute it to people evenly. And so in order to really solve this problem, it needs to get rid of people. And having war is really only one way of trying to get the human population under control. Another recent way that we all know about how Mother Nature has been affecting human lives a lot more than before is the greenhouse gases or global warmings. We have witnessed a lot more natural disasters than before because of climate change. The earth is getting hotter and hotter, and it's affecting a lot of locations around the world, and we are experiencing more and more extreme weathers that can cause extreme natural disasters and that can cost thousands and thousands of lives. Earthquake, hurricane, tornado, wildfire, you name it. That's just crazy. And those natural disasters had caused more deaths than the war themselves. And I think that is something that Mother Nature is doing to trying to rebalance life on Earth. But that is just my opinion. It is really a cycle because humans are the ones who generated this whole problem of global warming, and now it is a negative feedback loop, having natural disaster to keep us under control again. I would like to end this podcast with some potential solutions to end war forever. I don't think it's really possible to achieve it, but assuming the perfect world, it is a possibility, even though the chance is rare. So, number one, we have to respect our differences. So that means we don't judge people based on their race, we don't judge people based on their religion, and we don't judge people based on their gender, age, and whatever belief that they have. And that is not gonna go away completely. I think we have done really, really good over the past 50 years or so, from slavery until today. People have learned to accept the differences. And people from different ethnicity can become friends with each other. I have friends that are American, that are from Nepal, that are from Asia, that are from Europe, everywhere. And that is people starting to accept the different culture and being respectful. But of course, there's still a portion of people that doesn't like that. And that is going to take more time. But that has been gotten a lot better than what I had expected. However, in the perspective of resources and scarcity, the only way to solve that problem is by developing and inventing new ideas and technologies in order to create more resources using the same amount of input. So, a lot of science breakthrough. Maybe you can start making meat without feeding animal. Okay, I don't mean the fake meat like the vegetarians ones, but maybe in the future you can make something that looks just like meat without raising animal or killing animals. Maybe you can make the plant grow twice as much as the crops or twice as big with the same amount of input of the same amount of water and the same amount of time, and that would double the resources. And if the world will have enough resources and everybody have enough money, then there will necessarily not gonna be like any crimes or any fighting needed, because as everybody is happy and able to live happily, there's no need to go stealing a lot of other people, because in the end, nobody wants to commit a crime and risk the chance of going to jail or getting fined. I don't believe that anyone wants to be a bad guy. Nobody wants to be a killer. Nobody wants to fight a war. Those happen because they are forced or because of the situation they're in that caused them to commit those crimes or those actions. And if this the perfect world ever come, we don't have any more problems about resources, we will have peace. And hopefully, our history classes will continue to go through generation to the generations, and our future children will not make the same mistakes as our ancestors. Thank you for listening.